So continuing our discussion for environment. Next, let's see the next topic. Invasive species. Invasive species. An alien species is a species introduced by humans either intentionally or accidentally. So let us say एक species का एक natural habitat ये है और दूसरे habitat में humans इसको ले आते हैं, either intentionally ले आते हैं या accidentally ले आते हैं. So when they bring such a species, that time a species is an alien species. But not all alien species are invasive. ठीक है, सारे एलियन स्पीशीज के नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स नहीं हो सकते. कुछ स्पीशीज ऐसे हो सकते हैं दैट मे फिट वेल एंड डू नॉट हैव नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स इन दिस न्यू एनवायरनमेंट, इन दिस न्यू प्लेस, and so they are alien species, and 5 to 20% of all alien species जो है वो problematic हो जाते हैं, and then when they become problematic उन species को हम क्या बुलाते हैं? We call them invasive alien species. So what is the impact of such invasive species? Invasive species, जब alien species का एक negative impact होता है, so they become invasive alien species. So ये negative impact in the sense, what is a negative impact? The negative impact is that they can lead to biodiversity loss. They can lead to loss of biodiversity. They can deplete the resources of that particular ecosystem, and this can threaten the survival of other species that thrive in that particular ecosystem. So it leads to changes in the structure and composition of ecosystems, leading to significant detrimental impact on ecosystem services, affecting economies and human well-being. So this is another impact. So these are the common invasive species in India. These names can be important. Flora. The common invasive species in flora, Prosopis juliflora. Then there is water hyacinth. Then there are snowflake corals. So snowflake corals, remember, are invasive species. Prosopis juliflora, I'll just show you what. So this is Prosopis juliflora, and this is water hyacinth downweight. This is water hyacinth, and these are snowflake corals. And then there is this lantana, which they have these small flowers, and fauna may the invasive species, these are certain invasive species, that is African apple snail, we can just keep the name in mind, and papaya mealybug, and Amazon sailfin catfish. Now coming to the very important topic of corals, coral reefs. Coral reefs are the most biologically diverse ecosystems of the planet. So there is a very fascinating symbiotic relationship that exists between coral polyps and this algae that is known as the zooxanthellae algae. Coral polyps are basically those animals that are responsible for building reefs. What are reefs? So a coral reef is basically an underwater ecosystem that is formed when colonies of these coral polyps. So these coral polyps are these animals that small tiny ones, and so these coral polyps are held together in by calcium carbonate. So they are held together by calcium carbonate, and so that is how a reef is built. So most coral reefs are built from stony corals, and जहाँ पर ये polyps cluster in groups. So these coral polyps are responsible for building reefs. So these coral polyps actually develop a symbiotic relationship with the zooxanthellae algae. The zooxanthellae algae is photosynthetic algae that is known as zooxanthellae, and ये जो zooxanthellae algae हैं, they live in the tissue of the coral polyps. So if we look at it, if this is the polyp, if we see zooxanthellae live in the tissues, inside in the tissues of these polyps. So there is zooxanthellae algae that lives in the tissues of the coral polyps. So how are these coral reefs formed? See, coral reefs begin to form when these free swimming coral larvae, so there are these coral larvae that get attached to rocks. So there are underwater rocks that are the rocks that are submerged in water. So these larvae, they start getting attached to these rocks, okay, in the submerged rocks or the other hard surfaces along the edges of islands or continents, right? So the hard surface के ऊपर ये attach हो जाता है, and then what happens is that the corals के tissues में zooxanthellae हैं. So corals provides a protected environment to the zooxanthellae. So एक zooxanthellae यहाँ पे आ जाता है because the zooxanthellae algae gets a protected environment, and the corals also provide the compounds that the zooxanthellae needs for carrying out photosynthesis. इसके बदले में इसको क्या मिलता है, कोरल को क्या मिलता है, इसके बदले में कोरल को क्या मिलता है, एल्गे को अपने यहाँ पर रखने से कोरल को carbohydrates मिलते हैं. So the zooxanthellae carries out photosynthesis. So they produce carbohydrates that the corals actually use for food, and they also use and also for oxygen. So basically it becomes a very mutually beneficial relationship. So it becomes a symbiotic relationship, and the algae apart from that also helps the coral remove wastes. Now this becomes very important for us. So what are the favorable conditions for the formation of these coral reefs? So the favorable conditions, remember, warm tropical oceans with minimum temperature of 20 degrees. तो minimum temperature जो है 20 degrees, यानी कि 20 degree से कम नहीं होना चाहिए. So warm tropical oceans are most suited for it. So basically 30 degree north and 25 degrees south latitudes are suitable, and the oceanic water should be free of sedimentation. So the oceanic water should be free of sedimentation, and it should be in transparent parts of ocean bodies, ताकि जो sunlight है वो पहुंच सके, and जो zooxanthellae है वो अपना photosynthesis carry out कर सके. So on transparent parts of ocean bodies and relatively low salinity ocean bodies. तो जहां पर salinity relatively low है, that is favorable. Oceanic water that is free from sedimentation, and warm tropical ocean. So these are the favorable conditions for the formation of coral reefs. So basically the type of reefs, there is the fringing reef, there is a barrier reef, and there is also atoll. Fringing reef की अगर हम बात करें, so what is fringing reef? So let us say there is an island here. So island के around, just जैसे surrounding, so there is this extension wherein this grows, right? So the coral reefs grow on this extension, so it grows around. So you can see if this is the island, it grows around the island. So the reefs grow around the island like this, right? So that is a fringing reef. It fringes. Now what is a barrier reef? Barrier reef की अगर हम बात करें, so there is an island, let us say यहाँ पर we see, so there is basically a bordering shoreline, or what we can say इसके बीच में एक lagoon है, right? So if you see, this is a cross-sectional view actually. So if you see it like this, so barrier reef, there will be an island, और उसके बीच में water body रहेगा, and उसके around it there is this, ये जो land यहाँ पर extend हो रहा है, वहाँ पर the coral reefs will grow. So they form the barrier reef. So बीच में there is a water body, right? And island है, फिर एक water body surrounding it, and surrounding it there is this barrier reef. Okay, so this is a cross sectional view. अब यही island, जो barrier reef का जो case है, अगर यही island पानी में चला जाए, it gets submerged, then this forms an atoll. तो बीच में कोई island नहीं रहता है. This is just a circular, what you can call a reef. So this is an atoll. ये atoll हो जाता है, right? So fringing reefs are the most common, and they form along the borders, along the shoreline surrounding the island, directly along the border of the island. They form. Barrier reefs basically grow at border shorelines, but at a greater distance. तो अगर ये island है, तो यहाँ पर they will grow at this place. इसके बीच में water होगा. They are separated from their adjacent landmass by a lagoon of open, often deep water. यहाँ पे there will be deep water here, and then यहाँ पर जो है the reefs will grow. So they actually surround it, but there is उसके बीच में एक water body है. So that is a barrier reef. अटॉल क्या है? यही आइलैंड जब सबमर्ज हो जाता है पानी के अंदर, तो सिर्फ ये जो राउंड जो जैसे बैरियर रीफ में जो सराउंडिंग रहता है, सराउंडेड रीफ रहता है, अटॉल में वही रहता है, पर अटॉल में जो आइलैंड है वही सबमर्ज हो जाता है. सो इट इज अ फ्रिंजिंग रीफ. If a fringing reef forms along a volcanic island that subsides completely below the sea level, while the coral continues to grow upward, so then an atoll forms. Atolls are usually circular or oval with a central lagoon. So they have a central lagoon. इंडिया में हम कहाँ कहाँ देख सकते हैं coral reefs को? So we can see them in the Gulf of Kutch. Remember, coral formations of the Gulf of Kutch represent one of the extreme northern limits of the corals in the Indian Ocean. ठीक है, Gulf of Kutch में we get to see the west coast of India. So the west coast of India में we get to see the coral reefs. Then Lakshadweep Island. This is very prominent example. Atolls are there. Lakshadweep Islands. And then there is the Gulf of Mannar. Maybe we get to see coral reefs. And then Park Bay or Pork Bay. And then Andaman and Nicobar group of islands may also we get to see the coral reefs. What are the threats to coral reefs? So the threats are destructive fishing practices, overfishing जब हो जाता है वहाँ पर, and sometimes careless tourism, because see there is a certain condition in which these coral reefs can survive, and they are usually, if they are threatened, pollution say they get threatened through climate change, because there is a certain temperature at which they they thrive, and coral mining, these are all threats. So remember these fire corals, okay? So these are fire corals, and fire corals are one of the rarest and the most endangered species of coral. So remember, they are one of the most endangered. There was an error. So yeah, fine. So fire corals are one of the rarest and the most endangered species of corals. And snowflake coral, jiska image I showed you in that time when we were talking about the invasive species. So snowflake coral is an invasive species of coral which has the capacity to dominate space and crowd out other marine organisms. So snowflake corals are actually invasive species. Fine. So very quickly about Global Fund for Coral Reefs. So there is a Global Fund for Coral Reefs. What we have to remember here is that this Global Fund for Coral Reefs is a joint initiative of private philanthropies and UN organizations such as UNEP, UNDP and UN Capital Development Fund. So इनका एक joint initiative है. UNEP also has a part, UNDP also has a part, and there are also private philanthropies that are involved in this. So that much detail we don't have to know. ये 10-year, it is a 10-year $500 million finance instrument, and basically इसका aim है कि, as the name suggests, it is for coral reef ecosystems, to protect and restore coral reef ecosystems. So basically ये याद रख लीजिएगा बस, and it is focused on coral reef conservation and restoration. तो ये coral reef climate adaptation के लिए to unlock funds, they are actually going to work in that regard, and they're going to unlock financing through Green Climate Fund and Adaptation Fund, and through multilateral development banks. Basically, this what we have underlined, that much we just have to know. बस यही याद रख लीजिएगा. It is a joint initiative of these organizations, and basically इसका aim है for coral reef conservation, and it will help in funding. So there are certain corals that are deep water corals that are found in deep water. Okay, so mesophotic corals are basically in between. So there are these corals that are known as mesophotic corals. So mesophotic coral reef is characterized by the presence of both light dependent. There are these light dependent corals, and there are also deep water corals. So light dependent corals. तो ये जो mesophotic corals है, they are intermediate of these. So in these mesophotic coral reefs, we can find light dependent corals and algae, and those organisms that are found in water with low light penetration. तो ये जो corals हैं, the coral ranges here can overlap with deep water corals, but इनका distinguishing factor क्या है? इनका distinguishing factor है that there is a presence of zooxanthellae and their requirement of light. So it is intermediate, mesophotic in the sense there is a मिडिल ग्राउंड, यानी कि जो लाइट डिपेंडेंट कोरल्स है वो भी है, एंड देयर आर आल्सो दीज डीप वाटर, सो द रेंजेस ऑफ द कोरल्स हियर ओवरलैप विद द डीप वाटर कोरल्स आल्सो, बट दे आर अगेन डिपेंडेंट ऑन लाइट, सो मेसोफोटिक. सो एक टेक्नोलॉजी है दैट इज वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट यहाँ पे, दैट इज द बायोरॉक टेक्नोलॉजी. ठीक है, सो दिस टेक्नोलॉजी इज बेसिकली यूज्ड टू हेल्प इन कोरल रिस्टोरेशन. So there is a technology that is the biorock technology. ठीक है, so इसमें क्या होता है, they fix these steel structures in water like this. So here you can see that these steel structures are fixed in water and इसमें एक low voltage provide किया जाता है. So they are lowered onto the seabed and there is a low voltage or safe electrical current that is passed through the structure using a power source. So क्या होता है, dissolved minerals that are there, they crystallize on these steel structures. जो steel structures हमने देखा अभी, उसके ऊपर ये crystallize कर जाते हैं minerals and then they result in the production of calcium carbonate. So इसके ऊपर calcium carbonate structures जो है वो बन जाते हैं. So these steel structures actually have coral fragments which are fixed on it. So with coral fragments fixed, they are lowered and वहां पर फिर थोड़ा सा उसमें करंट पास किया जाता है, सेफ इलेक्ट्रिकल करंट, जिसके थ्रू कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट जो है वहां पर जाकर डिपॉजिट या प्रोड्यूस हो जाता है वहां पर, एंड देन देयर आर दीज वाइट लाइमस्टोन स्ट्रक्चर्स दैट गेट फॉर्म्ड. एंड इसका जो कॉम्पोजिशन होता है दैट इज सिमिलर टू दैट ऑफ अ नेचुरल कोरल रीफ, एंड दिस strength, and it is very strong, and it is similar to the strength is similar to concrete, and the thing is it is the only marine construction that grows, gets stronger with age and is self repairing. तो ये जो स्टील स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं उसके ऊपर इसको फिक्स कर दिया जाता है. सो कोरल्स आर एक्चुअली पुट इनटू इट, फिक्स्ड इनटू इट, एंड ये जो the corals grow on it. So there is this calcium carbonate structure that has been already formed. So corals को अपना energy spend नहीं करना. So how does it help? So corals actually get stuck to the CaCO3 structures. They adhere to this CaCO3 structures and it becomes easier for them to grow. They can grow at a rapid pace क्योंकि अब corals को अपना energy ये calcium carbonate skeletons बनाने में खर्च नहीं करना पड़ रहा है. So they grow rapidly here. So ये जो technology है, this helps corals counter the threats that are posed by global warming. So it helps them grow at a rapid pace, and it is a very important technology as far as coral reef restoration is concerned. So remember, biorock technology is associated with coral reef restoration. और भी काम में बायोरॉक टेक्नोलॉजी को एम्प्लॉय किया जा सकता है. वी कैन जस्ट गो थ्रू देम. मरीन कंस्ट्रक्शन, प्रोटेक्शन, बीच इरोजन, अडेप्टेशन टू सी लेवल राइज, oyster reef restoration, seagrass restoration, salt marsh restoration, fisheries restoration, sustainable aquaculture. But majorly remember biorock technology. ये सब ऐसे ध्यान में रखिएगा, but majorly biorock technology is for coral reef restoration. Now comes this important point here, that is about the Angria Bank. So Angria Bank basically एक shallow submerged atoll island है that is located 100 miles off the western coast of India. It is off the coast of Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg districts of Maharashtra. ठीक है, ये जो यहाँ पर ये जो एंग्रिया बैंक में कोरल रीफ्स पाए गए हैं, पर यहाँ पे ये जो कोरल रीफ्स हैं, they are peculiar because they are found in the middle of the ocean. इंडिया में बाकी जो कोरल रीफ्स हैं, they are either coastal in nature, जो गल्फ ऑफ मन्नार में है, they are coastal in nature, अंडमान एंड निकोबार में भी it is so, but Angria Bank it is in the middle of the sea, so it has the potential to become India's Great Barrier Reef. So this Angria Bank has the potential to become India's Great Barrier Reef. One important point we have to note here is that this Angria Bank falls outside the territorial waters of India, but it is inside the exclusive economic zone of India. Exclusive economic zone basically See, this is defined by the UN clause as a zone in the sea over which a sovereign nation has certain special rights with respect to the exploration and usage of marine resources. So it is not in the territorial waters of India, but it is in the exclusive economic zone region, and इस वजह से it cannot be protected under the Wildlife Protection Act. All right, and this area can be designated. इसको कैसे conserve किया जा सकता है? It can be conserved using this act, that is the Maritime Zones Act. Next, wetlands. See, in the previous video, I already explained ki what is an ecotone. Ecotone basically a transition zone hai. So wetlands are ecotones, that is transition zones between terrestrial and aquatic environments. So wetlands के examples क्या है? Mangroves are examples of wetlands. Lake littorals, यानी कि marginal areas between the highest and lowest water level of lakes. Acha, one more thing before that, I forgot to show you the location of the Angria Bank. I had it here, but it just slipped off from my mind. So यहाँ पे Angria Bank जो है हमने in the previous one, तो यहाँ पर है Angria Bank. You see, it is located off the west coast. Here you see, right? So mangroves, lake littorals, that is lake littoral क्या है? It's a marginal area between the highest and lowest water levels. I'll show you the zones of a lake in a while. उसके बारे में देख लेंगे. And then there are floodplains that can be wetlands, examples of wetlands. And floodplain क्या होता है? तो अगर ये क्रॉस सेक्शनल व्यू है रिवर का, सो द रिवर हैज सर्टेन नेचुरल लेवी, एक नेचुरल बाउंड्री जैसा होगा. बट क्या होता है कि फ्लड प्लेन इज द एरिया ऑफ लैंड दैट इज बेसिकली प्रोन टू फ्लडिंग, कि वाटर जो है एट सम पॉइंट कैन क्रॉस दिस लेवी. एंड जब इस वाटर द रिवर में जो वाटर डिस्चार्ज हाई हो जाता है, सो इट गोज हियर, सो दे आर द फ्लड प्लेन. सो जनरली floodplain wetlands can be permanent or temporary water bodies that are basically associated with rivers जिनका bed जो है constantly shift होता है. So this area, the floodplain, generally तो वहाँ पर water नहीं होता, but जब flood हो जाता है, so then the floodplain it becomes wet, and that remains wet after the flood waters recede also, and then they are floodplain wetlands, right? So this is basically what we can say is a transition zone between terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, right? And then there are other marshy and swampy areas that can be examples of wetlands. So क्यों important हो जाता है? See, हमने देखा था कि these ecotones are places where edge effect can be observed, and edge effect gives rise to a lot of biodiversity. So then there is this so hydrophytes are typical of wetlands. Hydrophytes are waterlogged soil on the plant life that is adapted to waterlogged soil. See, so waterlogged soil, adapted plant life are hydrophytes, and hydric soils where there is not enough O2 are chief characteristics of wetlands. अब इससे पहले कि हम और we go further ahead in the wetlands topic, एक बार quickly lake zone identification के बारे में देख लेते हैं, very quickly. So littoral zone होता है. Littoral zone क्या होता है? Littoral zone is basically the shore area of a lake or pond also, and so basically littoral zone consists of the dry land, and that is sloping towards the open water. So this zone is the littoral zone. ठीक है, यहाँ तक. So this is the littoral zone. Littoral zone जो है वो narrow भी हो सकता है, wide भी हो सकता है, अगर वो oligotrophic lake है या फिर young pond है जहाँ पे nutrients कम है, and उसका जो slope है, if it is steep, then वहाँ पे littoral zone narrow भी हो सकता है, इतना ही हो सकता है, छोटा सा littoral zone हो, या फिर अगर वो old ponds है, old lakes या pond है, then old lakes या ponds में there can be wider littoral zones क्योंकि उसका जो slope है that is gentle. तो जो लिटोरल जोन होता है दैट वी कैन सी इज शैलो, ठीक है, डीप नहीं है, शैलो, इट इज अ शैलो रीजन, एंड यहाँ पर लॉट ऑफ न्यूट्रिएंट्स कम फ्रॉम रन ऑफ एंड नॉन पॉइंट सोर्सेज ऑफ पोल्यूशन। अब क्योंकि यहाँ पर बहुत रन ऑफ के थ्रू न्यूट्रिएंट्स आते हैं, दिस एरिया, दिस रीजन दैट इज द लिटोरल जोन इज बेसिकली अबंडेंट विथ aquatic plant growth and with algae growth। तो यहाँ पर बहुत सारे aquatic plants and algae देखने के लिए मिलेंगे इन दिस रीजन। और भी inhabitants होते हैं इस रीजन में, देयर आर snails, insects, zooplankton, small fish can be found in these littoral zones। देन आता है दिस लिम्नेटिक जोन, ये जो लिम्नेटिक, दिस जोन इज द लिम्नेटिक जोन। अब लिम्नेटिक जोन बेसिकली ओपन एरिया होता है एक लेक और पॉन्ड का, इट इज क्लासिफाइड एज द ओपन वाटर एरिया ऑफ अ लेक और अ पॉन्ड। अब ये लिम्नेटिक जोन को हम टेम्परेचर के बेसिस पर क्लासिफाई कर सकते हैं, दैट इज टेम्परेचर, और रादर वी कैन क्लासिफाइड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ थर्मल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन। तो ये जो लिम्नेटिक जोन है बेसिकली उसका जो अपर पोर्शन होगा, द लिम्नेटिक जोन का अपर पोर्शन, जहां तक सनलाइट पेनिट्रेट करता है, लेट अस से सनलाइट यहीं तक पेनिट्रेट कर पाता है इन दिस लेक, तो वहां पर वो दिस लेयर विल बी ओवर, एंड दिस लेयर जहां तक सनलाइट पेनिट्रेट करेगा इसको हम यूफोटिक जोन बुलाते हैं, यूफोटिक, और व्हाट वी कैन आल्सो कॉल एज द एपिलिमिनियन। So this epilimnion region is basically the warm water region of the lake. So it is this region where the water receives sunlight and after that sunlight does not penetrate. अब क्योंकि ये जो area है, this is the top layer of this lake, it is in contact with the air, so there is sufficient amount of oxygen levels that are present here, and this is the region where algae and other aquatic plants thrive, along with of course the littoral zone वहां पर, and this is the area जहां पर we get to see dense fish populations because oxygen levels यहाँ पर high होते हैं। So ये यूफोटिक जोन के बाद थर्मोक्लाइन आता है। थर्मोक्लाइन टेक्निकली एक थिन बट डिस्टिंक्ट लेयर होता है जहां पर एक, इट कैन बी इवन ओशंस में ऑब्जर्व किया जाता है थर्मोक्लाइन। बेसिकली क्या होता है, थर्मोक्लाइन के बाद थर्मोक्लाइन जहां पर टेम्परेचर, इट इज दैट लेयर जहां पर टेम्परेचर जो है ड्रास्टिकली चेंज हो जाता है विथ डेप्थ। तो यहाँ पर अगर टेम्परेचर धीरे धीरे कम हो रहा होगा तो थर्मोक्लाइन एक ऐसा लेयर होगा जिसके बाद टेम्परेचर जो है ड्रास्टिकली डिक्लाइन हो जाएगा, ठीक है, एंड देन फिर अगेन उसके नीचे वाले लेयर में धीरे धीरे और कम होगा। बट ये जो थर्मोक्लाइन में जो टेम्परेचर डिक्लाइन है, दिस टेम्परेचर चेंज है, दैट इज ड्रास्टिक। तो यूफोटिक जोन के नीचे ये एक थर्मोक्लाइन होता है, एंड थर्मोक्लाइन, सो देन थर्मोक्लाइन के नीचे देयर इज दिस हाइपोलिमिनियन, और दिस इज ऑल्सो नोन एज द प्रोफंडल जोन, प्रोफंडल जोन भी बुलाया जाता है इसको। सो बेसिकली दिस इज अ जोन बिलो द थर्मोक्लाइन वेयर again sunlight doesn't penetrate. The profundal zone is basically, the profundal zone has lower fish populations because यहाँ पर lack of oxygen रहता है इस particular region में, and during most parts of the year। और जो सबसे फाइनल जोन होता है एक लेक का, सबसे बॉटम मोस्ट जोन एक लेक का जो होगा, दैट इज द फाइनल जोन, इज द बेंथिक जोन। This is the benthic zone of the lake, and this is the bottom of the pond, and it consists of organic sediments and soils। तो ये जो benthic zone होता है, this is known as the lake's digestive system, ठीक है, एंड यहाँ पर बेसिकली द बैक्टीरिया डीकम्पोज ऑर्गेनिक मैटर फ्रॉम डेड एल्गे, एक्वाटिक प्लांट्स एंड फिश एंड एनिमल वेस्ट। तो यहाँ पर जो बैक्टीरिया है, इट द एक्शन टेक्स प्लेस हियर, द बैक्टीरियल डीकम्पोजिशन। तो जितना ज्यादा ऑर्गेनिक मैटर होगा एक लेक में या पॉन्ड में, उतना ही ज्यादा डीकम्पोजिशन होगा वहां पर। डीकम्पोजिशन एरोबिक हो सकता है, एनारोबिक भी हो सकता है। एरोबिक यानी कि ऑक्सीजन के प्रेजेंस में, एनारोबिक यानी कि विदाउट ऑक्सीजन। ज्यादा फास्ट प्रोसेस एरोबिक decomposition होता है because the byproducts are easier to handle anyhow। So this was a quick idea about the different parts of the lake, the zones of the lake। Just this can be relevant, so we have an idea। अब ये littoral zone, हमने हमारा जो concern है as far as wetlands is concerned, वो तो littoral zone था, but still एक यहाँ पर it was relevant to have that idea about the different zones of the lakes as well. Now we will look at the 7 wetland biographic zones of India. So now let us quickly go through the 7 wetland biographic zones of India. तो landscape approach को adopt करते हुए for wetland conservation 7 new biographic zones of India have been declared. So ये जो zone है Himalayan region में, so the wetlands in the Himalayas we'll see here. There are glaciated lakes, swamps, and floodplain marshes spread across Leh Ladakh, Kashmir Valley, parts of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, and Assam. So ये जो wetlands हैं Himalayan region में, ये एक buffer zone की तरह काम करते हैं between the glacial melt and the rivers. तो यहाँ there is glacial melt and then there are rivers, right? So there are small rivers and streams. उसके बीच का region, so they act as a buffer zone इनके बीच का. So we saw that wetlands basically transition zones हैं. So basically यहाँ पर जो Himalayan region में wetlands हैं, they act as a buffer between glacial melt waters and outflows to small rivers. Next, there are wetlands in the desert and semi-arid zone of India. Desert and semi-arid zone of India. See, anyway, we will go through the Ramsar sites in India and we'll go through what is Ramsar Convention and all of that. But this is the general division that is based on the landscape approach. So Rajasthan and Gujarat में जो arid zone है, वहाँ पर there are saline marshes and also there are monsoon-fed freshwater lakes and reservoirs. Run of Kutch and salt lakes like Sambhar, Pachpadra, Didwana, and Lukransar. Okay, pronunciations में problem हो सकता है. Anyhow, so these are wetlands of this part of the country. So basically, these are the wetlands here that are part of this semi-arid zone, arid desert and semi-arid zone. अब next zone Western Ghats में भी wetlands हैं. Western Ghats actually speaking are very rich in biodiversity. They are one of the biodiversity hotspots of India and they are crisscrossed by a number of rivers and streams. क्योंकि इतने सारे crisscrossing है of rivers and streams, there are lot of riverine wetlands that are present. There are swamps, there are marshes, right? So this is an error. Lukransar is Rajasthan mein. Now this point is very important. ये जो biographic zone है Western Ghats में, we get to see Myristica swamps over there. Myristica swamps over there. This is very important. So I'll show you what the Myristica swamps Myristica trees look like. But see, Myristica swamps में basically there is an abundance of this Myristica trees, and ये जो Myristica trees हैं, they are the most primitive flowering plants on the earth. ये कहाँ पाए जाते हैं? They are found in Kerala and they are found in southern Karnataka. So ये जो Myristica trees हैं, यहाँ पर they have these roots that are known as stilt roots. Stilt roots basically are adventitious roots, यानी कि they grow from, adventitious roots क्या होते हैं? They grow from non-root tissues. So basically, if you see here, यहाँ पे जो roots हैं, so if you look at the roots in this, they are stilt roots. They grow from the lower stem nodes and then they join and become deeper in the soil. So ये बाहर ऊपर से ही grow करना start कर देते हैं roots, and such roots are stilt roots. We will also discuss what are pneumatophores, but that we will discuss when we talk about mangroves. पर यहाँ पर stilt roots, ये ध्यान रखिएगा, Myristica trees में there are these stilt roots. Fine. So these Myristica trees are evergreen, water-tolerant trees, and they have dense stilt roots. And how does it help them? It helps them stay erect in thick, black, wet alluvial soils. So ये वाले जो swamps हैं, they are basically found in valleys. तो valleys में क्या होता है कि जब बारिश हो जाती है, so they get inundated and thus they remain wet. So जहाँ भी ये marshy kind of land होगा, that is basically going to become a wetland. So see, Gangetic floodplains में भी wetlands हैं, wetlands in the Gangetic floodplains. तो हमने देखा था कि floodplains act as wetlands because वो जब wet हो जाते हैं, when flooding occurs and then the water recedes, they still remain, that wetness is there in them, and thus they act as wetlands, and so there are floodplain wetlands. So ये जो alluvial plains हैं of the Ganga river and the Brahmaputra river, they have riverine wetlands, and so in the form of floodplains, there are oxbow lakes, and इसको locally बुलाया जाता है. You can remember these terms are associated with these uh, lake wetlands. So Mon, Beer, Chaur, and Jheel. Right. So these wetlands sustain highly productive agriculture and fisheries and act as flood buffers. So in the northeastern region also there are wetlands. Basically there are a number of streams, lakes, ponds, waterlogged areas and oxbows. So there are wetlands in the northeastern region as well. In the Deccan Peninsula also we get to see. But Deccan Peninsula may basically a few natural wetlands are there, and it is mostly studded with constructed tanks. So they can also act as wetlands. So these actually serve as sites for nesting, feeding and breeding for a large variety of birds. अब ये जो wetlands हैं in coasts and islands, so there are narrow plains on the east and western coast. So the east and western coast, the western and the eastern coasts, there are these narrow plains, and islands are also there, and they actually have a lot of coastal wetlands as lagoons, salt marshes, mangroves, coral reefs. A brief idea about the zones, but we will look at the Ramsar sites specifically. We will look at the Ramsar Convention. अभी देखते हैं उसके बारे में. तो क्विकली देख लेते हैं why are wetlands important. देखिए wetlands को बुलाया जाता है as nature's kidneys, and they remove polluting nutrients and sediments from surface and groundwater. So they have this tendency, or they have this capacity to filter out the unwanted polluting nutrients, and thus they have this capacity to protect groundwater quality. They also help in nutrients recycling, and they help in stabilizing of local climate. They buffer shorelines against erosion and pollutants. So क्योंकि see there is shoreline और ये जो sea रहेगा, उसके बीच का region will be the wetland might be in between the such a region, so it actually acts as a buffer and it protects the shoreline against erosion. So these are basically marshy lands, so they basically act as sponge and help in flood control by soaking extra water from the surroundings. Very importantly, they provide habitat for wildlife, including threatened habitats, wildlife and fisheries, and recreational opportunities for birds, amphibians, and mammals. Also, they make the surroundings fertile for growth of crops, and thus, इसकी वजह से it is beneficial in farming activities. So it also provides ample opportunity for fishing and other commercial activities. एक बहुत important point है is that ये है कि it acts as a carbon sink. क्योंकि the soils that are there around this wetland have this capacity to store carbon for many years, and इस तरीके से they help in actually fighting climate change. So because of all these reasons, because of all these benefits, it is very important that we actually protect and restore wetlands, right? So wetlands are highly crucial and इनको protect करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. तो क्योंकि wetlands have a very significant role to play, उनको conserve करने के लिए, उनके protection के लिए लाया गया था the Ramsar Convention in 1975. तो ये जो Ramsar Convention है, उसका mission है the conservation and wise use of all wetlands through local and national actions and international cooperation as a contribution towards achieving sustainable development throughout the world. तो ये जो रामसर कन्वेंशन है, this is the only global environment treaty that deals with a particular ecosystem and wetlands. It was signed in 1971. So basically 1971 में it was signed, but it came into force only in 1975. 1971 में UNESCO came up with this. So basically इसका core philosophy है the maintenance of ecological character within the context of sustainable development. So the wetlands covered in its mission include lakes and rivers, swamps and marshes, wet grasslands and peatlands, oases, estuaries, deltas, tidal flats, near shore marine areas, mangroves, coral reefs, and human-made sites such as fish ponds, rice paddies, reservoirs, salt pans. So all of these are included as in the category of wetlands. So quickly, we'll see this. What are Ramsar sites? Ramsar sites are any wetland site which has been listed under this Ramsar Convention. There is a convention, Ramsar Convention. Uske andar any site that gets listed is a Ramsar site. Okay, and is Ramsar Convention ka aim kya hai? It is to conserve it and promote sustainable use of its natural resources. Ramsar Convention क्या है? Ramsar Convention is known as the Convention on Wetlands. It was established in 1971 by whom? By UNESCO. Remember this. 1971 में it was established by UNESCO, came into force in 1975. India is very much part of it. India is a party to the Ramsar Convention, and India signed it under it on 1st, so basically India signed it on 1st February 1982. Currently, remember, there are 47 Ramsar sites in India. This is important. Currently, फिलहाल तो 47 हैं. 47 Ramsar sites are there, and the largest Ramsar site in India is the Sundarbans. The Sundarbans is the largest Ramsar site in India. The first Ramsar site कौन सा था इंडिया में? Chilika Lake, Odisha में, and Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan were recognized as India's first Ramsar sites. सबसे ज़्यादा Ramsar sites कहाँ हैं? अभी फिलहाल आज के टाइम पर सबसे ज़्यादा उत्तर प्रदेश में है. उत्तर प्रदेश has the most number of Ramsar sites, and in India it has 9 Indian wetlands. Smallest wetland कौन सा है इंडिया में? The smallest wetland in India is Renuka Wetland in Himachal Pradesh, and that is the smallest one. Okay. So next is this Montreux record of French या स्विट्जरलैंड के हिसाब से जो भी इसका प्रोनाउंसिएशन हो, हम इसको फिलहाल Montreux बुलाएंगे. Montreux या Montreux record is a register of wetland sites. This is important. Okay. Montreux records is a register of wetland sites. On the list of wetlands of international importance, where changes in ecological character have occurred, are occurring, or are likely to occur as a result of technological developments, pollution, or other human interference, and therefore in need of priority conservation attention. So basically, ये जो Montreux record है, this is जो Ramsar list है, उसी में से कुछ साइट्स को Montreux साइट्स बोलते हैं, एंड ये वो साइट्स हैं, इट इज मेंटेन्ड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द रामसर लिस्ट, और ये वो साइट्स हैं जहां पर स्पेशल अटेंशन देने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर देयर इज अ चेंज दैट हैज अकर्ड इन द इकोलॉजिकल कैरेक्टर, और द चेंज मे अकर, और देयर इज अ प्रायोरिटी दैट हैज टू बी गिवन एज फार एज कंजर्वेशन इज कंसर्न, एंड इसीलिए इन साइट्स को अलग से स्पेसिफाई किया जाता है कि ठीक है, पोल्यूशन के कारण या थोड़े अदर एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटीज के कारण इसमें चेंजेस आ गए हैं. सो क्योंकि रामसर कन्वेंशन इज फॉर प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ वेटलैंड्स, अब इट बिकम्स इम्पॉर्टेंट टू सी टू इट कि कहाँ पर ज्यादा जरूरत है अटेंशन की, वेयर इज इट, कहाँ पर जरूरत है प्रायोरिटी देने की. सो दैट इज व्हाट मॉन्ट्रे रिकॉर्ड specifies. So it lists out those sites जहाँ पर special attention की जरूरत है in the Ramsar list. It is maintained as a part of the Ramsar list itself. India में, remember very importantly, there are two Montreux record sites in India. Very, very important. Loktak Lake, Manipur में. This is a Montreux record site in India. And Keoladeo National Park, कहाँ पर है ये? राजस्थान में. Keoladeo National Park is again a very important site because it is a Montreux site. Ramsar site भी है. Ramsar site है obviously. देखिए जो रामसर लिस्ट है उसी में से स्पेसिफाई किया जाता है कि कौन से साइट्स हैं जो मॉन्ट्रे साइट्स हैं, मॉन्ट्रे रिकॉर्ड साइट्स. ठीक है. सो लोकटक लेक मणिपुर में इंपॉर्टेंट है एंड कियोलाडियो नेशनल पार्क. सो दीज टू आर द मॉन्ट्रे रिकॉर्ड साइट्स इन इंडिया. रिमेंबर दीज. सो ड्यू टू लोकटक लेक में क्या हुआ है? ड्यू टू डिफॉरेस्टेशन इन द कैचमेंट एरिया, इन्फेस्टेशन ऑफ वाटर हाइकिन. वी सॉ की स्टार्टिंग में कि वाटर हाइकिन जो है दिस इज एन इन्वेसिव स्पीशीज एंड पोल्यूशन के कारण इसमें चेंजेस आ गए हैं. देयर इज ऑल्सो construction of hydroelectric power plant has caused the local extinction of several native fish species. तो इसीलिए इस पे ज्यादा जरूरत है ध्यान देने की. लोकटक लेक इज दस अ मॉन्ट्रे रिकॉर्ड साइट इन इंडिया. ये याद रखिएगा कि चिलिका लेक भी एक टाइम पर इसमें था, पर देन इट वाज तो 1993 के टाइम पर सिल्टेशन के कारण चिलिका लेक भी मॉन्ट्रे रिकॉर्ड साइट्स में डाल दिया गया था. बट फिर गवर्नमेंट टुक स्टेप्स एंड 2002 में उसको हटा दिया गया फ्रॉम दैट लिस्ट. सो नाउ वी हैव टू करंटली Keoladeo National Park is also in this Montreux record sites. And क्यों यहाँ पर Keoladeo National Park क्यों है? Water shortage है वहाँ पर and then there is unbalanced grazing regime around it and the invasive growth of the grass and reducing its suitability for certain water bird species, notably the Siberian crane. अब कुछ बहुत ही फैक्चुअल चीजें देखेंगे रामसर वेटलैंड साइट्स इन इंडिया. ये हाईली फैक्चुअल है, इसमें कुछ एक्सप्लेन करने जैसी चीजें नहीं होंगी. सो वी विल जस्ट गो थ्रू दिस एंड दीज आर थिंग्स. कुछ स्पेसिफिक चीजें हैं जो याद रखनी होंगी. अब रामसर साइट्स इंपॉर्टेंट वंस वी विल सी एंड देयर आर 47 ऑफ देम. सो बेसिक prominent ones को देखेंगे and the others that are there in the list we will just go through them and their location. Alright, so जो prominent वाले हैं उसके ही descriptions we will see. So recently they have added more, तो हमें ज़्यादा पढ़ने के लिए है अभी, but let's see. Let's start from here. So this is something that you will have to go through over and over again ताकि you remember this. ऐसे एक बार में go through करने से नहीं होगा. So just write it down somewhere and put it up somewhere so that you can go through it again and again. And पहले तो पुराने वाले देख लेते हैं. पुराने वाले रामसर साइट्स जो important हैं वो देख लेते हैं. तो पहले पुराने वाले देख लेते हैं. हिमाचल प्रदेश से स्टार्ट करते हैं. पुराने वाले में चंदेरताल लैंड is fresh water. Location Himachal Pradesh में चंदेरताल land. Now so Himachal Pradesh, remember it is in Chandetal land is in Himachal Pradesh and basically it is in this Samudra Tapu plateau and that overlooks the Chandra river. And the other important thing is this, that it supports the IUCN red listed snow leopard and many other species. So यहाँ पर snow leopard supported है. Remember in this Chandeertal land, snow leopard का IUCN status क्या है? It is vulnerable. Then next है एक reservoir है, that is a Pong Dam Lake. It is fresh water. It's a reservoir in Himachal Pradesh. तो इसमें ये याद रख लीजिएगा पोंग डैम के बारे में. Remember that it is in Himachal Pradesh. The next important fact is it is a reservoir that was created in 1975 on the Bias River. Remember that. Bias River. And एक और important चीज है, it is located on the Trans-Himalayan Flyway. Then again, next important one is Renuka Wetland freshwater. It is natural. That is in Himachal Pradesh. Renuka Wetland is in Himachal Pradesh. So this Renuka Wetland in Himachal Pradesh, इसका एक बहुत prominent feature है. It is a wetland with springs and karst formations. Remember, this karst formations is associated with Renuka Wetland. So inland subterranean karst formations. And that is fed by a small stream flowing from the lower Himalayan out to the Giri River. Basically, remember this it is a wetland with springs and it has karst formations, Renuka wetland. ठीक है, and this इस lake का एक significance, religious significance भी है. It is named after the mother of the Hindu sage Parshuram, and it is thus visited by thousands of pilgrims and tourists. Then comes Chilika Lake, that is a brackish water natural lagoon. Lagoon का मतलब आपको पता ही होगा. So lagoons basically क्या होते हैं? They are basically a shallow body of water. Lagoons are shallow bodies of water and they are separated from a larger body, जैसे कि sea या ocean से separated होते हैं by a narrow landform. तो एक narrow landform होता है जो इनको separate करता है from this particular larger water body, and it is separated by, like, it could be barrier islands or reefs. And lagoons are basically, they can be coastal lagoons or they can be atoll lagoons, like we saw yesterday about atoll. I mean, when we talked about coral reefs, we saw about atolls. So in the beginning of this, we saw, when we were talking about coral reefs, there we saw atolls, right? So वैसा separation हो सकता है. So basically, it is a shallow body of water that is separated from a larger body of water. So this is a lagoon. This is a lagoon, and यहाँ पे जो है इधर में sea है. So it is separated by the small landform that is here and a narrow landform. तो जैसे कि I told you already कि ये Montreux record में add कर दिया गया था 1993 में, but then it was removed in 2010 too. And ये जो Chilika Lake है, this is a brackish lake. Remember, it is a brackish lake that is separated from the Bay of Bengal by a long sandy ridge. So if you look at it, this is the Bay of Bengal and this is the Chilika Lake, and it is separated by a long sandy ridge. So this is basically a lagoon. So ये Chilika Lake में seasonal fluctuations होते हैं salinity के. One very, very important fact about this is that it is one of the only 2 lagoons with the population of Irrawaddy dolphins. So these are Irrawaddy dolphins and Chilika Lake contains these. Next, very important, Bhitarkanika wetlands are in Odisha. Okay, they are important. They are mangrove swamps. So quickly, if we try and look at the mangroves in India before proceeding with the others, यहाँ पे these are the mangroves that are prominently present in India. एक तो Sundarbans mangroves are here. Then there is this Mahanadi mangroves here. Then there is Krishna Godavari mangroves that we have here. Andaman and Nicobar Islands, maybe mangroves are there. And Kaveri deltaic mangroves are here. And then there is this Goa mangroves and Ratnagiri mangroves here. And there are certain mangroves present in Gujarat as well. इसके बारे में और detail में देखेंगे when we discuss mangroves. So remember that this Bhitarkanika wetlands is are mangrove swamps or mangrove swamps, and this is in Odisha. Odisha में है ये, and remember this very, very important fact here. It is, so this Bhitarkanika wetlands contain this Gahirmatha beach. And ये जो Gahirmatha beach है, this is said to host the largest known olive ridley sea turtle nesting beach in the world. Olive ridley sea. तो ये जो olive ridley sea turtles हैं, basically they are known for their unique mass nesting, which is called Aribada or Aribada, and जहाँ पर बहुत सारी females of these turtles, olive ridley turtles, come together and lay eggs on the same beach. So Odisha का जो ये Gahirmatha Marine Sanctuary है, it is known as the world's largest rookery, that is colony of breeding animals of sea turtles. As you can see here, so they lay their eggs over a period of 5 to 7 days, and Gahirmatha Beach is known as the world's largest nesting ground for these olive ridley turtles. हालांकि इनका status अभी, they are endangered, they are vulnerable as per the IUCN. So their IUCN red list में इनका ये जो olive ridley turtles हैं, they are basically vulnerable. Remember that. And sites, I have explained about sites in the prelims basket number 8. You can just go and check that. वहाँ पर actually ये जो olive ridley turtles हैं, they are included in appendix 1 of the sites, right? And Wildlife Protection Act, जिसके बारे में हम देखेंगे in the subsequent videos when we cover this. So Wildlife Protection Act के schedule 1 में included है olive ridley turtles. एक और चीज याद रखिएगा कि this site has the highest density of saltwater crocodile in the country. Saltwater crocodiles, Gahir Mata Beach. So remember these, right? Then we have Deepor Beel. Deepor Beel जो है, that is in Assam and it is freshwater natural. Remember, it's in Assam. So ये एक permanent freshwater lake है in a former channel of the Brahmaputra river. तो Brahmaputra river के former channel पर है ये, and it is the only major stormwater storage basin for the city of Guwahati. Alright, so the important thing that we have to note here, that we can note here, is some of the threatened birds include the pot-billed pelican, lesser and greater adjutant stork. Remember these. The lesser and greater adjutant stork is found in Deepor Beel and Byers Pocard. Alright. So for today, we will pause this video here, and बाकी का जो discussion है of the remaining important Ramsar sites and the description, we will discuss in the next video for environment. And हाँ, so बाकी इसको continue करेंगे यहाँ से, and then there are a lot of things to discuss. So for today, I'll just stop this video here, and we will continue this discussion about the remaining Ramsar sites. Also, we will discuss important चीजें जो वहाँ पर हम याद रख सकते हैं, उसको भी देखेंगे, because this is a very, very important topic. So we will, I'll just stop this here, and we'll continue in the next video for environment.